introduction of sector management to British Rail on the 5th of January 1982 saw provincial, what would later become regional railways, focus its minds on replacing its elderly DMU fleet, a lot of which were worn out. Initially, the Pacer family, classes 140 to 4, were brought out, but a more robust design was needed after it was found that the problem with the Pacers was that they were single axle and were perhaps just a little bit too lightweight. From this stemmed the Sprinter family, and there were to be a few, shall we say, relatives within that family. The first one was the Class 150. This was designed for short range and local usage. The Class 155 and 156 family came along, and these were called Super Sprinters. Like the 150s, they had a top speed of 75 miles per hour, but they were designed for medium distance operations. Later on, after the introduction of some Class 158s, 35 of the 42 strong Class 155 fleet were converted to single car Class 153s for rural branch lines. The 7 that weren't converted remained 155s. These were owned by West Yorkshire PTE. However, the top of the range Sprinter unit was to be called the Class 158. It would replace locomotive hauled services on regional railways, express and long distance services, and would also take over from Class 156 Super Sprinters and their cross-country services such as Birmingham to Norwich, Cambridge to Liverpool. This would allow the 156s to go on to other services, and would also replace the push-pull trains on the ScotRail Express Triangle, Glasgow, Edinburgh, Aberdeen, as well as doing Edinburgh to Inverness. They would also then replace the local hauled North Transpennine trains between Newcastle and Liverpool and operate other services such as Aberystwyth to Wolverhampton, Hull to Holyhead. They were originally planned to be built at Derby, which is what did happen, but they were originally planned to start getting introduced in May 1989 on the ScotRail Express network. Early production difficulties plagued the class, however. The first 2 complete units were actually to be built in Alstom in France, and they would then be transported to Derby to get fitted out. Early problems with stress testing and a problem with the jigs meant it wasn't until September 1989 that the first complete Class 158 actually operated under its own power. Squadron introduction of the Class 158s was therefore heavily delayed. A lot of testing had to go into the units, and it wasn't until September 1990 that the squadron introduction of the Class 158 took place in Scotland, and they gradually replaced the local hauled Class 47/7 push-pull sets, and also replaced local hauled trains on the Inverness to Glasgow and Inverness to Edinburgh services. Designed with a top speed of 90 miles per hour, they were regarded as the flagship of regional railways units, and they were designed with many features that weren't even available on other units, and that in some cases were only exclusive previously to intercity trains, such as air conditioning. During early 1991, they took over from local hauled trains on the Newcastle to Liverpool service, as well as replacing local hauled sets on the Crewe to Holyhead service. They also took over from 156s, as already mentioned, on the cross-country axis. A total of 447 complete Class 158 vehicles were built, although, as we'll hear in a few minutes, not all of them entered service with regional railways. The last ones did enter service with regional railways in early 1992. The 447 vehicle figure included some non-driving cars, as some of the units were to be of 3-car formation. However, 3 additional body shells were actually made as well. One was put into use as a replacement for a damaged 158 vehicle early on in their career. The other 2 were kept spare for many years, although I believe that those 2 have now been scrapped. That 447 vehicle figure did include, however, an extra 2-car 158 unit, like what you see here, that was ordered to replace 2 Class 150/2 vehicles, both DMSLs, driving motor standard lavatories, that had been written off after separate accidents. One at Seymour in late 1987 and the other at St Helens in 1988. The 2 undamaged vehicles went into other Class 150 vehicles and made them 3-car units. The extra 158 was ordered to maintain the net stock figures of vehicles, not units. The 158s were given a special livery, and that livery, as you can see here, is completely different from what was applied to other provincial units. And I should add as well that this is the second version of that livery. The first version had where the regional railways lettering is, the word Express, but didn't have regional railways or ScotRail on it. It just had the word Express. It was later realised that some of the services that the 158s were going to be used on weren't actually express as such. I'm thinking of services like Edinburgh to Inverness. And so it was decided that they would drop the express branding and would instead use just regional railways, or in Scotland, ScotRail. The Class 158s also had a brand new style of cab. Too much in detail to go into here, but I'll put a link up to another video called the 158 Experience, made for regional railways in 1991. Another 20 vehicles, i.e. 10 units, were ordered by the West Yorkshire PTE, and these were numbered 158, 901 to 10, and they were immediately recognisable by carrying the red and buttermilk livery of the West Yorkshire PTE as opposed to the normal Regional Railways 158 livery. Some refurbished Class 156s in the mid-1990s would also gain this livery that you see here, and I think it looks very nice, that livery. It really suited them. It's hard to imagine that September 2026 will make it 36 years since these units first started entering service, and you wouldn't think that the units are 36 years old when you actually look at them. One last piece about the Class 158 story, and this, although out with the era of this layout, is worth mentioning anyway, and that is that in the mid-1990s, regional railways used a few of these units on some supplementary services between Preston and Birmingham New Street, or Liverpool and Birmingham New Street, and it's thought these may well have actually been intercity services rather than regional railway services. Walton-on-Trent, actually, in a video where he launches his 158, goes into that in a bit more detail. Well, that's the 158 story completed, but what about its brother, the 159?
As the Class 158s were starting to be built, Networth South East was looking into replacement of the rolling stock on the Waterloo-Exeter service. As a short-term measure, NSE managed to get 11 of the 47 sevens ousted in Scotland by the new 158s, along with a couple of 47-4s, made surplus after electrification to King's Lynn was completed in 1991. In 1992, to replace the remaining unreliable Class 50s, the 5 47-7s at Rail Express Systems were put on loan to NSE to help with the Waterloo-Exeter service. NSE had several options available. These included the proposed Class 4-8 and new coaching stock, third rail electrification from Worting Junction to Exeter, or DMUs. Following an appraisal, it was decided to go for the new DMUs. The initial choice was a proposed Class 171, a 3-car diesel version of the proposed Class 471 third rail unit for the Kent coast. But, at the same time, in early 1992, due to a downturn in the economy and thus custom, regional railways found it had ordered more Class 158s than it required. It was found that the order could be reduced by 60 vehicles, thus 20 3-car units. Realising this, NSE opened negotiations with regional railways about taking on the last 20 3-car units on the order. However, NSE required 69 vehicles, i.e. 23 3-car units, and regional were reduced the order by 20 units. It was found that 2 more 3-car units could be made available if NSE took over the Oxford-Worcester service from regional railways, and accordingly NSE ordered another 2 3-car 165s for that service. That was as close as the two sides could get. NSE had to order 1 more Class 158 unit to make up to the 23 units or 69 vehicles if wanted. The units were numbered in the 158 unit series, but in NSE livery. They were then transported to Rosyth Dockyard in Fife for the internal conversion work, too complex to explain here, and then were renumbered into the 159 XXX series, though the vehicle numbers were the same as when they were delivered to NSE as 158s. Externally, the 159s are no different to a 158, but the changes internally make them a different unit. Since then, in the mid-2010s, a few more 3-car 158s have been converted to 159s.
So, what about the model itself then? Well, this is my first multiple unit on the layout, and it's worth explaining why I've ended up with a multiple unit on the layout. It's called Me and My Big Mouth because back in early February I'd made a prediction to a friend of mine. You may have seen how I've got 47712 in parcels red on the livery, on the layout, and that was a conversion from 47474. And I had predicted to this mate of mine, who I shall keep nameless, that Bachmann were making some announcements in February, and I was absolutely certain that Bachmann would announce a 47712 in parcels red livery, and I said to him, if they don't, I'll buy a 158. See me and my big mouth. But the unit itself, the model was purchased from eBay, and it looks really, really good. It captures a 158 in its second generation livery, as we've already mentioned, where Regional Railways is. Above the band, Regional Railways would not have been there, and there would have been a break in the two-tone blue bands there to put the word Express in. Bachmann have actually produced a version of the 158 with that in, going to Nottingham, and that's the one that Walton-on-Trent has. This one here, 158849, is the one that David Watson has on his layout. Now this one is not a sound fitted example, it's just a simple DCC fitted example. The DCC fitting was done by Jim and Chris Scobie down at Scooney Hobbies in Kirkcaldy, who are therefore regarded as part of the 158 team, or Project 851. But what about the model itself? Well, the model itself is a very well produced machine. The livery application on the units, on the cars of the units, is absolutely superb. They've even got the, I don't know how well the camera can pick it up there at the window, but you can actually see how they've got the aluminium door surrounds there, and the door button surrounds, and the warning flashes to tell you not to attempt to board the train when the doors are closing. On the sound fitted version there's a bleeping sound to simulate the doors closing. Obviously this is not a sound fitted example. I mean, if I was to go and press function 3 right now, there's nothing happening, nothing happening. So it's not a sound fitted example, this unit, it's only a standard fitting example that you've got here. Now I've just put on there the cab, the interior windows for the interior lights for the two units, and you can see the lights going on there. That's by the way function F4 with this decoder. As I say, I'll just put them back on there so we can see what's going on. And the unit also has cab lights as well that can operate if you so wish. One thing I do like about this unit is, I'll just turn the camera to here so you can actually see, I've got it with the tail lights on at this end, but you can actually see that the Liverpool Lime Street destination is actually still illuminated on that, and that's absolutely correct and fully accurate. Change of direction, and there we have it. This bit down here is the bit that Bachmann have captured very well, and that's the nose, the front end cowls. Later on, the end here was converted so it looked like a little bit of a snowplough, so there was a bit taken out of it. Bachmann have not actually done that here, but then that is accurate because it wasn't until I think it was 93 or 94 that they started to do that, did regional railways. This unit does not carry first class seating in it, so there's no yellow band above the windows that are first class. Turning you to here, and the bogie detail and all the underframe detail is picked out very well. It's a Bachmann's low slung motor, means that there's no intrusion into the seating area, but in order to make sure that everything can fit into the unit, it does mean that the seats and the tables are a little bit shallow. So if you are actually going to put people in this, just be prepared to do some serious leg amputations to make sure that they can actually be seated properly. It is a problem, and if I put the interior lights on the unit you'll actually see what I mean. The tables are absolutely portrayed accurately, and note that they've also got it so that every seat can look out a window. Builders of trains nowadays, please take note of that. I mean in real trains, not double gauge trains. Now the underframe detail is very well picked out indeed, including these chrome pipes here, and electrical boxes. They've even got the warning flashes on there. There's also you would need a magnifying glass to see the detail there, but they have got it in there. They've also very correctly put the door warning light on there, but it's a non-operational thing. But you know, that doesn't detract from the model, and try to put a warning light into there, it's going to be very difficult. It's the same on the other vehicle, but what I will show you just further up here is another nice touch that Bachmann have done, and they've actually portrayed this accurately. That's the exhaust pipe, and they've actually got this chrome protector over the exhaust pipe with the vent holes to let the heat come out from the exhaust. It was actually designed to, I believe, protect staff who may be filling up water tanks on the unit. The red contrail stripe is just visible on the top of the unit, and it carries around the whole way around the vehicle, including the inner end of it, with a warning flash there, and it's got its C3 designation. It's hoped in the future that Bachmann will bring out the 158 once again, hopefully in Regional Railways livery, and you never know, they might even actually produce one with Scottish destinations. Now, Walton-on-Trent with his 158, he was having to send his to Nottingham. Mine is actually going to Liverpool, but luckily I do have a train going to Liverpool. We'll finish off this video by getting a running shot of the unit coming into Clydebridge station. Now, please be aware that in order to allow the unit to operate, you only need one decoder. And the decoder goes in the vehicle that's numbered 57XXX. Full instructions are included as to how you fit the decoder, and it actually goes in a slot underneath. Jim was the one that was doing that, and then Chris it wasn't in right, and Chris fixed it. So that's how you would actually put the decoder in. Another thing when you actually see this train running is that please bear in mind that this is not a sound-fitted example. If you have a sound-fitted example, when it starts up, you'll hear one car start up first and then the other. That is not a design fault with the decoder or the equipment. That is actually how it works in real life with the 158s. One car starts first and then the other one. So whatever cab the driver is in to start it up, then the other one will start up. And I just forgot to mention as well, this coupling that you see down here, if you wanted to, you can actually couple a second 158 to it, so you can really recreate a 4-car set if you so wished. The inter-car coupling is actually 22 pins that allows the electric controls to pass from one vehicle to another. I've already coupled them up. A wee tool is supplied to release the clip that will allow you to take them out, but please be gentle when you're putting the cars together. It looks very easy to break one of those pins, and thank God I haven't done so. So there we have it. Project 851 is complete. The Bachmann Class 158, numbered 158849 in Regional Railways livery. Now I'm going to be having to give the track a little bit of a clean, and I'm going to have to give the wheels on this unit a bit of a clean too, I think, as well. And that's another thing. If you've only got one wheel cleaner, I suggest you get a second wheel cleaner, for the very simple reason it would be easier to clean the wheels on your 2-car unit when they're actually coupled together rather than trying to keep uncoupling them. But the unit itself I'm very happy with. I do regret actually my comment that ended up resulting in me actually getting this, but there we go. But a lot of people I know will be very pleased that I've now finally went and succumb to the multiple units. If you can see a 158 on eBay or that, do get it, but I would recommend you don't get the one that's the very first Bachmann run. That's easily identifiable by the style of box that it's in. It has a photograph of a real 158 on the front in ScotRail livery. I would recommend you don't get that one because they are quite difficult to put a decoder in. So, that's your Bachmann Class 158, number 158849. Have you got one in your layout? Doesn't matter if it's in Regional Railways livery or a privatisation era livery. If you've got one on your layout, let us know what you think of it. Because this is a true one-off. You won't see another 158 at Clydebridge Station. You won't see another unit at Clydebridge Station. But please, let me know what you think of the 158. That completes Project 851 here at Clydebridge Station. I'll see you next time for another video. Hopefully not with me buying another multiple unit. But in the meantime, please, whatever you're doing, take care of yourselves, won't you? And enjoy your layouts. And I'll see you soon. Cheerio.